Welcome. Let's look at this particular question called Framiltone. Right. So, as always, remember, let's look at the requirements. Right. What do they say? What is required of us? Using the data in the appendices. Okay, using the data in the appendices, recalculate. The calculation has been done. It's a recalculation. Okay, what do we need to do? Recalculate the current year budget to the end of the year budget. Okay, that is one requirement. Second is briefly comment on the overall impact of this on the expected profit. So, what is the expected profit? Impact. Okay, so not only comment on the things on the calculation itself, but the impact on expected profit. Okay, so always, please read the question requirements properly. If you miss it, your 6 marks is gone, because it's 12 marks. I'm assuming the comment section to be of 6 marks, so 6 points, 1 mark per point. Okay, so recalculate the current year budget, okay, to the end of the current year. Okay, fine. Next thing is evaluate. The verb over here is evaluate, a move from traditional incremental budgeting to a system of rolling budget. Would it be appropriate for dairy and luxury division? So what you can do is you can create subheadings inside it. Traditional incremental budgeting, right? So within that we can do what? We can talk about in one paragraph, we can talk about dairy, you can talk about the luxury division, right? And we can talk about advantages and disadvantages of incremental budgeting. And so basically we can talk about that, and then we can use it or apply it in the scenario. So let's just say our first heading will be incremental budgeting, second will be rolling budget, right? So let's divide the marks accordingly. So 6.5, 6.5, right? And within that as well, let's talk about what is incremental budgeting and its good things and bad things, right? And then let's evaluate it, or let's identify what kind of budgeting system, right? First of all, identify, evaluate the current scenario, and come up with points for why is it better, right? So why is it better? So evaluate, rolling budget, right? And introduction, let's just say that introduction and all those things. And then we can talk about the dairy division and then the luxury division similarly in the same thing as well. We could do something like that, right? So that gives us the structure. The structure itself is very important. Okay, that will give us what, just to make your structure quickly, we get the points. So if we know this, or if we plan this structure beforehand, what you can do is copy the requirement, make your structure like incremental budgeting, rolling budget, right? And then grab the points from the scenario as you're reading it, highlight it, grab it, and bring it under the whatever heading you are planning to put it inside. So that will give us a little bit of answer planning technique. Okay, so that's how it should be done. Otherwise it's very easy to miss all this simple to miss the simple easy marks. So what is Framilton? It's a food manufacturer. Where is it based in? It's based in Zealand. Okay, so very important point, and whose objective is to maximize shareholders' wealth. Okay, how could that impact? Let's just see. So food manufacturer, and they want to maximize shareholders' wealth. Okay, fine, we can deal with it, not a big thing, right? So Framilton has what, two divisions. One is dairy division, one is luxury division. Okay, and Framilton began manufacturing 20 years ago, dairy division representing 60% of the revenue. So dairy division is bigger than the luxury division. What kind of implications could that have? So we are assuming that 20 years ago they started manufacturing dairy foods. Then they started, what happened? Then they moved towards food manufacturing, right? It seems like that. Food manufacturing, why is that? Because they added a luxury division, okay? Even in this first paragraph itself, a little bit of company background will give you a lot of idea about it. And 60% is from dairy division, okay? Dairy division is comparatively bigger, 60%. So, okay, 40% is from luxury division, okay? Luxury division, it seems like luxury is the new kind of segment or new kind of product that they have introduced. It seems like that, okay? I have not read the scenario, but it seems like that. Just initial assumptions only. So dairy division, what is dairy division? Let's look at it. So the dairy division manufactures cheese and milk based desserts, right? So it manufactures that. So what was our requirement again? Let's just read that again. Sometimes it's fine to, so we need to recalculate the current year budget to the end of the current year and briefly explain the impact on the expected operating profit, right? So traditional incremental budgeting system to rolling budgeting system would be appropriate for dairy and luxury division, okay? So I'm just thinking from a divisional perspective as well, okay? So how could it be, why, what kind of impact could happen, right? I'm just thinking about that. So thinking about impact for this division based on the if there is a change in the budgeting system, okay? So the market in Sealand for the product is saturated. Market is saturated. There is no opportunity for growth. So that means it's a stable market, right? So there is not many competitors out there, or let's just say there is competition within the market to grab people, right? So there is little opportunity for growth. There is no market growth, so it's a mature market. So that's a perfect situation for an incremental budgeting system, right? Because your costs are already well known, right? So if I were you, I would grab this piece of sentence, keep it inside the heading of, what is it? The heading name is incremental budgeting, right? So you would leave some spaces, put it down there, right? But dairy division has, however, agreed profitable fixed price agreements to supply all the major super chains or supermarket chains in Sealand for 3 years. So it has what? It has a supply chain agreements, right? So fixed price agreements. You see the very important thing over there. So your costs or your revenues are well known, right? So it's already well known. Again, another good ingredient to apply incremental budgeting, okay? So for the next 3 years, it's going to be constant, right? So the division has long-term fixed volume and purchase contracts with suppliers of milk. So what do they have? They have long-term fixed contracts, fixed volumes and price contracts, not only volumes but price as well. So your revenue side is constant, your cost side is constant, right? Your cost side is constant. So what else do we need, right? So which is by far the significant raw material, right? If I were you, I would write this point down as well. So basically your revenue, there is fixed price agreement for revenue, there is fixed price agreement for volume and price for the main ingredient used by the division, right? So that's milk. And in contrast to luxury division, dairy division does not own its own fleet of delivery vehicles, but instead subcontracts it to a third party distribution company. The terms of the contract provide that the distribution can pass on some increases in fuel costs. Okay, they can pass on, okay, to Framiltone that increases are capped at what? 0.5% annually, and are agreed prior to finalization of each year budgets. So you see the very definition of incremental budgeting is what? Incremental budgeting is basically your you're incrementing the previous year budgets by a set of inflation figures, right? And it is also adjusted for any known increases in revenue or costs. You see right over here, since prior to the year, prior to finalization of the year's budget, they have a discussion, they agree on it. So the very definition of incremental budgeting is being satisfied right over there, right? And basically any increases is already known, right? So I would put this point again right there, right? Applications to scenario, right? So how many points did I grab from here? Let's just see. So market is saturated, one thing I got that. I got the other point, second number point, what did I get? I got this fixed price agreements, right? Fixed price agreement for revenue for the next 3 years. I got the input price or the significant raw material cost. I got that point as well, 3 points, right? So I got this other point as well. So fourth number point was any cost is known beforehand, right? So basically for delivery as well, we know the cost. So I've got 4 different points from the scenario for a particular division called dairy division, right? And then the production volume have shown less than 0.5% growth over the last 5 years. So it's been constant. Okay, so it's growing less than 0.5%. So if we were to prepare a budget of, let's say, by assuming the volumes to grow by 0.5, that would still be sufficient. Okay, that would still be sufficient because production volumes tend to grow less than 0.5%. Okay, so it's very controllable, it's very predictable, let's just say that. So I would definitely put in this thing as well in my answer. Why not, right? Why not? So dairy division has invested in modern machinery and production to be more efficient and consistent, right? So there is no surprises there is no surprises of disruption, right? So disruption costs are not there. So I would put that in my point as well. Why not, right? Why not? Let's make most of it, right? Let's make the most of this information that they have provided. 6 points, right there, boom. How much is this thing? How much is this marks? How much marks is being allocated right over here? So it's basically 25 marks, right? No, I mean 13 marks. So 6 marks for traditional incremental budgeting, 6 marks for rolling, and whether it would be appropriate, we have to make a conclusion as well very end. Okay, always remember overall. So my heading would be under the heading of overall. So I would say for dairy division, incremental budgeting is very appropriate. Okay, and let's read something about this luxury division as well. So luxury division, alright. So luxury division was set up 2 years ago to provide an opportunity for growth. So 2 years ago, it's relatively new. Remember my assumptions at the very beginning that they started as a dairy supplier, then they started moving up, or they just started horizontal integration, I guess, maybe, right, horizontal integration kind of thing. So to provide more opportunities for growth, which is absent from dairy food sector, right? So that was an opportunity of growth because the market was saturated, there was no growth happening. So it's a growth is important, right? So that is one very important point right over there. It produces high quality foods using unusual, rare, expensive ingredients, most of which are imported. Okay, I would definitely write these things. So unusual, rare, expensive ingredients, most of which are imported from neighboring land, right? So it's importing from VLAN. Okay, so that's what's happening. It's importing. That means there will be some implications associated with its costs. Okay, and in such a scenario, and then what else, the product range changes frequently, so it's changing frequently, right? So range is changing according to consumer taste and availability and prices of ingredients. Okay, even the cost itself is unpredictable, your revenue itself is unpredictable, right? And it has its own delivery, right? So that is also a variable. That is also a variable, because as your activity changes or as you start selling more, you will need, it is generally correlated, right? So basically higher sales will lead to basically increase in delivery vehicles, right? Basically that would be the assumption. Okay, that's the assumption. So it's very variable, very variable, right? So I would say that's very variable. And we've been given incremental budgeting. Okay, so since the company began, so there is a heading over here, incremental budgeting, and Framiltone has used a traditional incremental budgeting process. Annual budgets of each division are set by company's head office. So if I were you, I would write one thing down. I would write one thing down. Okay, okay. I was about to say that if head office, so it's going to be a top-down approach, right? I was going to say that, but it says that the divisional managers are consultant who have little experience of setting their own budget. Who have a little experience of setting their own budget, right? So they do that consultation, okay, and they have little experience. So that could be uh, a good clue as well. Good clue for let's say saying that, like, they would need guidance from head office, right, with more experienced people. Let's just say that. And performance of each division and of each divisional manager is appraised against this budget, right? Is appraised against this budget. So if they meet the budget, they would basically be granted their bonus, right? For years, Framilton managed to achieve the budget set, but last year, managers of luxury division complained that they were unable to achieve the budget due to factors beyond their control, right? So of course, I'm going to talk about something very important over here. What is that important thing? Is basically controllability. I would talk about motivation, right? Motivation. Because why did that happen? Because a wet growing season in Wayland had reduced the harvest of key ingredients. What happens when there is a less supply? Of course, increasing their costs. Okay, of course, increasing their cost, right? The even the person who is setting this question paper is so predictable, huh? As a result, revenue and gross profit margins fell sharply, and the division failed to achieve its operating profit target for the year. Okay, so ingredient is basically increasing their cost, and then their pricing was basically the same. That's why their gross profit margin took a dip, right? Right, and then it failed to achieve its operating profit target. Failed to achieve its operating profit target. Okay. So if I were you, I would definitely write this thing down inside the luxury division heading, or let's just say, inside the luxury division heading, right? In case of luxury division, I would definitely write these things down, that due to factors beyond their control, such as harvest of key ingredients in luxury division, the change was very significant, right? So it was very unpredictable thing that happened. And I wanted to say, also don't forget about the employee aspect of it as well. Okay, that's also another point that will give us analysis point. So 5 marks, professional marks, let's not forget that. right? Let's hit those easy marks as well. And now what do we need to do? So rolling budgets. Framiltone has just appointed a new CEO at the end of Q1 of the current year. Okay, end of Q1. Okay, so we have just ended the quarter, first quarter, right? You as a performance management expert for your advice, right? So he has called you in, right? So in my last job in retail fashion industry, we used rolling budgets, right? Where annual budgets were updated to reflect the results of every quarter's trading. Okay, this gives a more realistic target, providing a better basis on which to appraise divisional performance. Alright, do you think such a similar systems for all divisions? For all divisions, perhaps no. Perhaps could be for luxury division, but not for dairy division, that's for sure. You have obtained the current year budget for luxury division and the division's Q1 trading results in Appendix 1 and notes outlining expectations of key costs and revenues for the rest of the year, Appendix 2. Okay, for the rest of the year. Alright, so the budgeted was this much, right? Actual performance was this much. Alright, so expected key costs for remainder of the current year is going to be the sales volume are expected to increase by or expected to be 2% higher each quarter than the forecast of the current budget. It's going to be 2% higher. Alright, so all these things we will definitely apply it. Alright, and then the average selling price is supposed to increase by 1.5%. So revenue is going to jump by 1.5%. But how? It should be 2% volume increase, right? So revenue will increase based on the volume, and then volume revenue will increase based on what? Based on the average selling price, okay, for each unit. So another thing is the exchange rate between that. You see, when I talked about importing and exporting, so we are Sealand dollar, right? So we are in Sealand. We are importing goods from V-land, right? So the predicted change at the beginning of Q2 to $1 buys 1.5. So C dollar equals 1.5, right? C $1 equals 1.5. For several years up to the end, it was equivalent to 1.4, right? So our currency is being strong, right? That means our input cost will be less, right? The exchange rate has been used when producing the current year budget. Food produced in the luxury division is dispatched immediately upon production, and Framiltone holds minimal inventory. Okay, they have a let's just say a bit of lean system, right? And the cost of ingredients imported from VLANs represent 50% of the cost of sales, and suppliers invoice goods in VLAN, right? So remember we did something similar kind of question in risks and uncertainty related topic. There was something about this 50% cost, right? So for this red, blue and green, that kind of thing. So there was some probability associated, 75% probability that it could increase, 75% probability that it would depreciate, right? That was there. Do check that questions out as well. Rate of tax levied by Sealand government on the cost of fuel which luxury uses to power its fleet of vehicles is due to increase from 60%, which it has been for many years, to 63. Okay, so it's just going to increase from 60 to 63. Okay, 70% of the division's distribution costs are represented by cost of fuel. Okay, so we've been given distribution cost, so 70% of it is that, and out of that 70%, it should be that the cost has increased by how much? 3 by 63, right? It has increased by 63%, right? And then CEO has initiated a program of overhead cost reduction and savings of 2.5%, which are expected to be cost reductions and savings of 2.5% from budgeted administrative costs are expected to be from the beginning of Q2, and Q3 administrative costs are expected to be further 2.5% lower than Q2. So it's going to be, let's just say, compounded, because whatever the figure is in this particular quarter Q2, it's going to be compoundedly reduced. Okay, let's look at our model answer. Oops, why did I open the music app? I don't want to listen to music right now. I want to open my book. Alright, so Framiltone for number A, what does it say? So there is a slight deviation from the normal style of examiner, but was very manageable. Good candidates who have worked methodically each line of the budget, setting up workings to show changes expected, right? So good candidates will have examined in detail suitability criteria for each type of budgeting, supporting their discussion with reference to scenario. So we need to recalculate the cost, right? Recalculate the cost. So first of all, for the revenue, so its actual is given, we put that number in, and then we need to calculate for the rest of the quarter, right, based on that. So for revenue, what is it? So sales volume is expected to increase by 2%, and then selling price is 1.5, right? Original budget is 10,400, and then based on so we have some key revenue and costs, right? So original budget was 12,000. Just write all those figures in. 11,000, 4,000, total is 40,400, right? 40,400 because of this revenue. And 2% volume increase is basically how much? So 2% volume increases basically 12,000 times 2%, right? That will give us 240. And then the revenue increase is supposed to be beginning from Q3, so not in Q2 but Q3. So 1.5% increases is going to come from Q3. So it's going to be 11,000 and then 220, right? 220. How much is that? 11,000 plus times 1.5%. Alright, so you add those things two together. So 11,000 plus 220, 11,220 times 1.5%, right? So out of the total volume, right? Volume plus the current revenue, it's going to increase by 1.5%. Similarly, you get your total figure, right? All good until over here, right? So cost of sales is 6240. Okay, and what do we say here is that 50% of it is imported from outside, right? So we need to also include, people miss out that sales volume will also drive cost of sales, so we need to include that as well, right? Original budget plus your 2% sales volume should be there. Then after that, how much has the currency increased or appreciated by, right? So that is 1.5, right? 1.5 divided by 1.4. Where is that? So 1.4 times I think there is a working done somewhere. Right over here. Right, how much has it increased by? It has appreciated by, so that means our cost would be reduced by that much. Right, so 1.5 divide by 1.4 minus 1. I don't know why I'm getting this thing, but it should be 1.5 minus 1.4, 0.1 divided by 1.5. Right, that's it. That's it. That's it. So the value has, what has happened, the currency has become more stronger. Right, so 7120 plus 120, 142.4 will give us total of 7262. Right, times 6.60, no, times 0.5 times 6.67%. Right, 242. Okay, so it's these two figures plus that's the total volume or cost of sales. Out of that, 50% is your current cost. Right, out of that 50% would be your current cost, and then what would happen, your cost would be reduced by how much? 6.67% of that. Okay, of that. So the cost reduction would be 6.67%. That's why they have put it in bracket. Okay, that's why they have put it in bracket. Similarly, you could calculate for the other quarter as well, right? So what has happened was that I could say it in another way as well. 7120 plus 142.4 will give us a total of 7262.4. Right, out of this minus or times 0.4, 0.5, 3631.2. So 3631.2. Right, the cost should have been 7264.4, but what has happened, out of that 50% is right now costing us how much? It should have costed us 1361.2. Right, but there has been a reduction in that cost of how much? Of this figure. Right, and then that is for this figure minus 6.67%. 6.67% is 242.2. Right, so you could just decrease from this 7262 minus this figure, so that will give you 7020.2. Okay, so it's just as simple as that. Just look at how it has happened to the currency. Okay, whether it has increased or not. Based on that, you can compute it very easily. Okay, based on the total cost as well, you could compute it. Okay, not only from the currency rate only. Of course, you will need the change of it, but you could compute it. Okay. So for distribution cost, there was something relating to this as well. 70% of it is what? It's associated with cost of fuel. So distribution cost, we just write the original budgeted. So that is also dependent on the volumes, right? So we write 2% volume increase, and then we write what's the increase in fuel cost, right? So fuel cost increases. So 70% of how much? So 70% of how much? So 70% of 70% of the total amount is your fuel cost, right? So what we can do is, so 3% of let's just say that right now it is 160, right? So right now it is 160, so 70% divided by 160 times 3 will give us the increase in fuel. Okay, increase in fuel expense. So how much is it increasing by? It's increasing by 1.31%. Okay, that is from Q3. So that's why we just put that value in Q3, and our total costs will amount to 682 for the quarter 3. So similarly we could do it for the total as well. For administrative cost, what's happening over here is there is a total original figure of how much is that. Actual figure is there. There is 2300, and administrative cost, it says that 2.5% further, so it's compounded savings, right? So 2%, 2.5%. So it just we could just do it this way as well. So 2300 times 2.5% is 57.5. So 57.5 plus your 240, plus this figure, whatever your total thing is, right? So you could just do that. So 57.5 plus your 242.5 times 2.5% will give us a savings of that much, 113.6. So similarly for Q4 we could do it as we have done for Q3. Alright, so that will give us a savings rate of how much? 168.3, right? So we got all these figures, so that's done, but we need to still comment, right? So recalculating the luxuries budget for the year to reflect current conditions give a more realistic target. All right, it gives a realistic target. Okay, right now it is 1240, the profit is 2243, right? So it gives more realistic target, and let's just explain some of the figures. For the coming year, what's going to be happening is that the so for the coming year, the effect of this is very significant and represents more challenging target for the manager, as it increases the expected annual profit by 42%, right? 42% from 4,000. So it's going to be more challenging for them. Okay, it's going to look like that because of favorable exchange rate, and then because of all this cost savings initiative initiated by the CEO. Right, so that's a very good comment, and they have basically said how we should use analysis technique right over here. This will definitely earn analysis marks. Number B, incremental and rolling budget. Remember I told you to do it via two headings, right? So let's just see the marking structure, right? So we are given 12 marks for the calculations, and for conclusion 2 marks, up to 2 marks, up to 2 marks. Okay, for a rolling budget it's 18 marks, up to 8 marks, and up to 8 marks for rolling budget. Okay, so 8 marks plus 4 plus 3, no, 2 plus 3, so 5 marks. So 8 plus 5 or 5 plus 8, it could be divided in any way, but yeah, still. So it's a long thing that they have written down, right? So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Okay, so for Framiltone uses this type of budgeting. The starting point is usually the previous year's performance and performance budget. So this is updated for any known changes in cost or for inflation, remains unchanged for the remainder of the period. So incremental budgeting, as I mentioned, is very useful in stable and market where or an organization which is not going through significant changes. So dairy operates in saturated and little opportunity to grow, right? Remember I told you to put that thing right in the answer planning technique. So if you had done that, you would have earned this marks, right? Boom, right, 1 marks right over there. And if you've just talked about incremental budgeting, that would definitely give you a little bit of marks as well. And production volumes in dairy division have increased by 0.5%, which is very stable. And both the revenues and costs and long-term agreements have been fixed volume contracts, everything. That will give you another 1 mark, right? So and regarding the delivery fuel expense, right? So this is another thing where they talk about the fuel cost, right? Fuel cost. And we did not miss, we will miss, I think many candidates will miss this tax increases, which will increase the fuel cost, right? Which is coming from this appendix point, which is very rare to think about it in an exam setting. So probably 1 marks, right over there. Furthermore, these increases are agreed upon prior to setting, right? So any update will be known. Of course, we answered that, 1 marks. Saturated and stable, so it's likely to incur R&D of low, right? So this is just extrapolation, let's just say that. It's a good analysis as well, we could definitely say that, but it's an extrapolation kind of thing, right, from the scenario. It's just inferring, let's just say that. And incremental budgeting is only suitable where costs are already well controlled. This is because a big disadvantage of incremental budgeting is that it perpetuates inefficient activities. So we are talking about negatives now, okay? So by simply building inflation into previous year, it appears that dairy division have been in existence, and then they have good cost quality control, okay, cost control I mean, and it has modern machinery, so which is more efficient, right? Remember I talked about this as well, so that should earn us 1 marks. And incremental budgeting may however build in budget slack, okay? That's always a point that you can write. And managers may need to speed up their budget amounts in 1 year so that their budgets is not cut the next, okay? So they are being promoted, or they are being promoted to appraised for building inefficiency, okay, for building slack, or just for spending money, right? So it's unclear whether the slack is happening at dairy division or not, and though for many years the budget are set following consultation with managers, right? So this could lead to consistent and stable budgets, right? And which were not set at challenging enough level. So even though dairy division had the best performance of the 2 division last year, right? So that could always have been the case, right? There could have been slack that was built up. So yeah, that could be there. So it's not therefore advised that rolling budgets be introduced in dairy division. So this is a conclusion. So this is especially so since divisional managers have little experience in setting their own budgets, and time and cost of using rolling budget would exceed the value to them to the division, okay? So they talked about managers experience and everything as well, the cost and time associated with it, right? So that was very cleverly done, let's just say that, cleverly woven answer. For the rolling budget, what's happening over here is rolling budgets are continually updated to reflect current conditions and are usually extended by budgeting for an additional period after the current period, right? So for example, a quarter has elapsed, that way the budget reflects most up-to-date trading conditions and best estimate of future costs and revenues, usually for the next 4 quarters, okay? So it's always for 12 months. Rolling budgets are suitable for business which are going change rapidly, where it is difficult to estimate future costs and revenues. Okay, that's a very important thing where it is hard to estimate. So luxury division, which was created 2 years ago, right? So it's a relatively new business, and different sectors of the industry in which dairy division operates, and where Framilton has most experience. It should be considered. There is likely to be considerable uncertainty to the future costs and revenues of Framilton, as Framilton has direct experience. So I think in my analysis, I did not think this thing through. Okay, I did not think this through because when I was analyzing it, I had seen that this division was established 2 years ago only. I should have thought what could be that implications in terms of incremental or rolling budget. Okay, I did not think, I didn't, that point did not came up to my mind before, but it there was a hint right over there. Okay, there was a hint right over there. I was very close, very close. But you see, it's very hard to miss. It's very uh, easy to miss, right? It's very easy to miss. So what happens? So since they are relatively new, they might have very little experience in terms of forecasts, right? They are using incremental budgeting, so they are very new to the world of forecasting. So there will be uncertainty as to how to estimate costs and revenues. Whereas dairy division is already operating in saturated and stable market, and there is some variations of availability of a different kind of rare ingredients, right? Their inputs, and then there is no fixed term contracts or volume contracts, so they are likely to suffer from instability of supply, right? So it's not very frequent. Another thing they could talk about was exchange rate, right? The frequent changes in the product range are likely to make forecasting for an year ahead difficult, right? So uh, frequent changes in the product range are likely to make forecasting very difficult, right? The fact that large proportion of ingredients are imported from VLAN, which makes them susceptible to exchange rate changes, right, which can quickly make an annual budget out of date because of factor, right? Of course they could use some forward contracts, hedging instruments. Always we can always talk about that, huh? We can always talk about exchange rate. When there is exchange rate, always remember you can always talk about hedging a little bit, just a small point. Okay, so if the managers are operating based on a budget which is out of date or unrealistic, they might just give up, right? So managers motivation, remember I talked about controllability. So since exchange rate is not in their hands, right? So they can't be expected to meet the budget which is already out of date, because of external factors that is influencing it, right? So of course there could be some controllability could be there to some degree, but even hedging as well is not perfect always. Okay, it's not perfect, and given their lack of experience in terms of importing, it might not be even suitable for them. Right, the costs may be higher than the benefits. Again, another thing is rolling budget will provide more accurate basis to appraise managers at luxury division, as they incorporate the best estimate of future cost, best known estimate of future costs and revenue. So it can be seen that by recalculating the Q1 results, the luxury division's revised budgeted operating profit for the year has increased significantly by 42%. Most of it is due to exchange rate changes, right? Where costs and revenue are likely to change during the period. Rolling budget, therefore, gives a much more realistic basis on which this divisional performance. So if they had basically used the same incremental budgeting, it would have been only 4,000, right? They would have easily hit the target. So sometimes they easily hit the target, sometimes they miss by, they are way off, they are way off. So It makes this budget more achievable, and it would motivate managers, right? So it's not like if you the thing with achievable, right? So in order to with the budgeting thing is to have achievability, okay, inside it. But it's not that it should not be easily available. There should be easily achievable. There should be optimal performance, right? So it should be at optimal performance, then only the budget should be achieved in that way. So whenever we are talking about achievability, always that should be there. And through regular updating of the budget, right? So we can talk about negatives of this as well. Why not evaluate, right? It's evaluate. So when you're constantly doing it again, right? So it's very costly, time consuming, and possibly a distraction for divisional managers. It does seem that rolling budgets are more suitable for luxury division than current incremental approach, particularly as being realistic and achievable. They will increase managers' motivation to achieve the budget and so improve the performance of the business, right? Once they are motivated, they try to achieve that budget, which could lead to better performance, right? Not suboptimal performance because they were demotivated because of budgeting this budgeting system, which was what that this budgeting system which was not so uh, which was being a demotivator for them because it was not, or they could not influence it. That's why. Okay, they could not hit the target, that means no bonus, right? They could not meet the budget, that means they were not awarded their beloved bonus, right? What was the examiner's comment? So part A was attempted well by many candidates. The layout of the answers was generally excellent. Okay, layout was excellent, and although some of the calculations in this part of the questions were tricky, candidates of SP strategic professional level who read the requirement carefully should have had few problems. The examination team was disappointed to see how many candidates could not adjust forecasts by a set percentage or struggle to compensate for the change in working capital, right? Change in exchange rate. How much was the marks? Exchange rate percentage was 1 marks, and sales volume increases was what? Application of exchange rate was 1 marks, right? Fuel tax percentage was 1 marks. As mentioned, candidates must ensure all relevant workings are shown. Too many incorrect answers were presented without supporting calculations, thus marks for the methods were potentially lost. Okay, so they did not show the method. Okay, number part B, right, was particularly well done. Most candidates who attempted this question scored at least half. It is pleasing to see many candidates adopting a sensible structure to their answer here, explaining the budgeting system, discussing advantages and disadvantages of the system with regard to each division, and then making a suitable recommendation. It is recommended that candidates identify a clear structure for their discursive answers to ensure all areas of the answers are covered and relevant examples to the scenarios are used. So even the examiners is suggesting that we use clear structure, right, for our discursive answers. So that will definitely boost our potential to earn marks. Okay, so if this is followed, structure is followed, that will definitely help us boost our marks, right? So that's it for this video. Take care. Bye bye.